Trouble for West Ham on and off the pitch now can only be described as toxic, the atmosphere at the London Stadium. Alyson, how much trouble is there at West Ham? I mean, quite literally, all over the place.
Yeah, I think of all... Journalists tend not to interview fans. It's seen as shortcut journalism. Actually, when it isn't, you should always speak to fans. And I've never interviewed more people associated with the West Ham Independent Supporters Club or associated with the club, about any club. West Ham fans, they are a really eloquent bunch, and they're not all of the sort who want to be aggressive and run on the pitch. There's a sense there that even the most mild-mannered, loyal, desperate to make it work fan at West Ham, who accept that life moves on and you know the Boleyn ground has gone. They accept that. They know they're at the London Stadium and they'd rather not be there, but they're prepared to give it a go. Even that level of fan they're heartbroken. And when you have too many of your supporters at that level of heartache, it goes badly wrong and it starts feeding in on itself. And then they don't feel listened to. So then it grows and grows, the unrest grows and grows. So I'm not at all surprised it sort of exploded in the scenes that we saw at the weekend at all. They are fans who feel, most of all, they've been sold a lie. They don't trust the ownership of the club. They're scared that the team flit from looking like they might be mid-table to, oh, my goodness, we might actually get relegated now. They're confused about what they see on the pitch. They're confused about why David Moyes was appointed, the short-termism involved. So it is a club in, I wouldn't say crisis so much as in distress, and maybe that's worse.
I mean, it's, in a way, they've been relegated before, West Ham, and bounced back. But it seems that there is nothing right at the club at all at the moment. Absolutely nothing.
Doesn't appear that way, does it? And you do wonder how they get out of this hole, because could there be a scenario ever where they do leave the London Stadium and they build a smaller ground, more compact, more atmospheric? I think that's a huge long shot, really. So the only way out of it is to try and win games. And I mean, as a footballer, it's not easy to go out onto that pitch. It's hard enough commentating, you're miles away. But as a footballer, you know, having been used to Upton Park and most of the grounds in the Premier League, it's totally different.
But how much is the unrest led by the poor results? Let's say West Ham were fifth or sixth at the moment. Do we think we would be seeing
But
all
that's
of
a
this?
part of it, isn't it? As Alyson said, a part of it is the fact that they've been sold a false concept in that they were going to challenge towards the top, maybe not win the title, but they were going to be a bigger force in the Premier League because of the move to the new stadium, and it's gone the other way. And you know, if they could easily get relegated if they don't watch themselves. So that's why part of the discontent.
I think it's interesting, and I think you're right, Jeff, to focus on the kind of on-field. The sense I got from friends there at the weekend was that it only turned ugly when they conceded a goal. There are differing views, actually, wildly differing range of views from on the stadium issue itself. But what they do seem to all agree is this point about being sold a dream, that this... I think we should say these formidably successful businessmen who own West Ham, who have pulled off an incredibly successful business deal, in the first instance buying the club for very little, pulling off a move to a stadium, securing 99 years at a bargain rent. They're probably in a situation today where, on the one hand, they've maybe got £40 million left in this deal. The club made, they just announced their results, £43 million of profit in the first year. So that's last season, their first year at the London. £40 million of profit after tax, after interest. Now, and most normal companies, let me tell you, and this is my world, a company making £40 million of profit, if that's sustainable, which means in football, if you were to say they're going to be in the Premier League indefinitely, that's a £300–400 million company. So as a strictly business matter, they've made a fortune. They're not young men. They may sell the business. But my point, Jeff, is that The justification for that business transaction was, we'll improve the team and we'll make...
Justification was, and the quote was, a world-class stadium for a world-class team.
And both...
29 million net spend across 4 transfer windows.
And that's the point. The point is that, I say this as a business person in football, that when you get too far separated from what it's all about, which is football, it's when things get very, very tricky very quickly, when owners and executives lose sight of what's happening on the pitch.
Who's paying the bills?
Because ultimately, whether it's season ticket money or subscriptions to television, fans expect that money to end up on the pitch. And £43 million of profit is about £42 million that could be spent on wages, and you still have a break-even.
That club could be better run in different hands.
Better's an emotive word. They could spend significantly more if they wanted to on wages, given that profit.
You've been through the accounts. Do you think the board at West Ham have sold their fans short, given that the money that's available to them, what they've actually spent?
You quoted me, world-class stadium, world-class team. It's most definitely not a... You said something fascinating then about journalists. It's considered short-changing to, or shortcut journalism to speak to fans. In business, the most important thing is to speak to customers, to respect that customer experience, that customer journey. And in football, that basically means 2 things. The most important thing is giving fans the team they want. And the second thing is their match day experience in the stadium. Those 2 aspects of West Ham have not lived up to the promises. It's a really miserable experience. It's not a football stadium. It's an athletic stadium. It feels like that when you go there. And to have managed to get...
Do we buy that completely, though? Because I've just got a feeling that if the board had invested in the team, and the team, as we said, we're doing 4th or 5th, they'd bought lots of really good players, I think the fans would find it more palatable. I'm not saying they would love it.
I'm agreeing with you, but if you do neither, then you are asking for fans what you're seeing, which is...
It is. I have been at the London Stadium when it has been rocking. It is possible to get that place.
Tottenham games.
Right,
really, I mean, you know, your seat is moving. It's a big concrete edifice, and yet it can bounce.
I mean,
but getting
so it's
there...
not impossible to have a cracking atmosphere and an enjoyable watch of football.
You can look at other clubs in the world and point to more successful ones, like Roma have been in the Olympic Stadium, and Lazio for centuries, it seems, and that's miles away from the pitch. It's got a running track. There's plenty more examples like that, and they are more successful. I've been there when it's
dead and there when it's rocking as well. That's the point. That's the point. You want a ground which is conducive to always being setting off fireworks and making everyone feel, I don't want to go there. It's a tough place to go.
Doesn't that normally depend on how the teams do?
How do they turn this around? The West Ham, or first of all, Alyson, do you think they can turn it around? The West Ham owners.
Well, I was just listening to you and thinking, how can you make that much money and be so stupid in other areas of business? Because the PR gaffes the owners have made when Bilic was in charge. I mean, it's easy to say with hindsight, but they would not spend the extra few million to get William Carvalho from Sporting Lisbon. And Bilic had told them he's the player who's going to be the linchpin of my season. My team won't work without him. I really need him. In fact, I've set it up for him to come, but they got Golden Sun got cross that Sporting Lisbon held out for. Well, they only held out for the fee they thought he was worth. They didn't start acting silly. So, but they didn't like being bartered with over that. And then you listen to the fans' list of what they want from their matchday experience. None of it is expensive. What it does require is for the West Ham ownership to be able to talk better to the Newham authority and allow them to set up the walk from... The way you're herded from the various tube stations to the stadium, the path you have to take, the soullessness of it. When you contrast that with what they used to have when they were at the Billing Ground, it's the complete opposite, and that doesn't cost a lot. Doesn't cost a lot to make it to have listened and to make it
You're right,
more fun.
But the point is, and I want to be really clear on this. This is done. This is a 99-year lease. It's in both directions. They've signed it. They're there. You've referred there to an underlying problem, which is even after the terrible instance of Saturday, I couldn't help but notice in the press release put out by about 6 o'clock, this is terrible, we're running an investigation, and we've called a meeting of all the stakeholders. In any normal football club where you own and operate your stadium, the meeting's with you. What are we going to do? But they're having to have meetings with the Legacy Committee from the Olympics.
Well, they're campaigning, aren't they, for more ownership rights and basically more flexibility using the stadium?
I don't know, but they're certainly at the moment, they've got stewards who are hopelessly unqualified to work at football grounds that aren't employed by West Ham. And that's a major security issue. Everybody who goes there tells me the same thing, that it's not football stewards who, when they sense or see where an opposition goal scored, just that, we've all seen it in all our years at football grounds. You know, an away team scores, suddenly you see stewards just move into those potential flashbacks. None of that's happening at this stadium. So the rental deal is a bit of an operational mess. The playing story, West Ham would say, Jeff, they were the 7th biggest spenders on wages last year, £95 million. So I think it boils down, to answer your question, how do they get out of it? They've got to get the right manager and the right transfer policy. And the sense is that's just gone terribly wrong for them.
They've gone from promising a top club that can qualify in the European places, a club that will be in Europe, because playing at the London Stadium means you should be playing in Europe as well. That's what it...
And you've got the 7th highest wage bill, so they should be. Par is 7th or 8th.
Within one season, you go from that to being so scared about being relegated.
And by the way, if they're relegated, guys, I don't know what... This feels to me, if they were relegated, firstly, just imagine that stadium with championship crowds. But it would then start to feel, I'll give you 2 comparables, Sunderland and Newcastle. Owners that have fallen out with fans, massive clubs playing in half-empty stadiums.
Well, Newcastle
when they were in the Championship.
They're normally fairly well supported. I'm just looking at West Ham's remaining fixtures, their home fixtures. They've got 5 left. Do you worry for them in that atmosphere? I mean, also as well today, it was decided that at their next game there'll be police presence both inside and outside the stadium.
Well, the next game's huge at the end of this month against a Southampton team with a new manager, so the West Ham lads will be thinking maybe there'll be a bounce and it's not the best time to face the Saints. But, yeah, it's vital that they turn their form around as quickly as possible. I mean, in that first half against Burnley, they could have had 3 goals. They could have been 3 up quite easily, and it just shows you how fine the lines can be.
It's tinderbox, the atmosphere there, isn't it? It just seems that one little thing will spark.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So the players somehow have got to go out there, they've got to be big, broad-shouldered, want the ball. It's easy to hide under those circumstances and try and make things happen. I mean, they have got good players. It's not the best team in the world, but they have got players that can hurt you in Lanzini and Arnautovic going forward. So to get a win against Southampton, it's a start. And after that, they'll just hope that they can survive.
If they stay up, then there's got to be a very good chance that the owners look to sell the club.